distinguished participants. I want to sincerely thank New Zealand and, of course, the IMO for the opportunity to present at this important conference. And, as an Icelander, I'm particularly pleased to be here and contribute to the leadership Iceland has shown over the years with regards to safety of fishing vessels and our seafarers, and, of course, being one of the first to ratify the Cape Town Agreement. Today, I will highlight not only the amount, but the increase in fishing vessel activities in the Arctic Polar Coast area, which demonstrates the importance of having effective safety regulations in place for fishing vessels, not least in the Arctic region. But first, a very short background. The Arctic Council is an intergovernmental forum that promotes cooperation, coordination, and interaction among the 8 Arctic states. These states are Canada, the United States, Russia, Sweden, Finland, Norway, the Kingdom of Denmark, and Iceland. Importantly, the Arctic Council also consists of Arctic indigenous communities through the Arctic Council permanent participants and also Arctic Council observers, which include non-Arctic states such as Spain, China, Japan, and South Korea, all of whom are big fishing nations. Observers also include international organizations such as the IMO and WWF. The Council's activities are conducted in 6 working groups, composed experts from ministries, government agencies, and researchers. As one of the working groups, PAIM considers a range of marine-related activities, such as shipping in the Arctic, area-based management, resource exploration and development, and Arctic marine pollution, including plastics in the oceans. PAIM initiatives include coordinated strategic plans, best practices and voluntary guidelines, trend analysis and recommendations, and interpretation of mandatory regulations such as the Polar Code. PAIM has also worked towards a harmonized and successful implementation of the Polar Code by establishing the Arctic Shipping Best Practice Information Forum. The forum raises awareness of the Polar Code provisions amongst all those involved in or are affected by Arctic marine operations. A common understanding by decision makers is the key to a successful implementation, and PAIM's work will contribute to this understanding. It is, of course, of essence of those operating in the Arctic that they understand the Polar Code requirements and know how to apply them. Arctic shipping stakeholders, including operators, marine insurers, and flag states, have a unique platform in the forum to contribute to the Polar Code implementation and share their expertise, as the forum has established an online web portal where the forum participants can share information amongst them. The web portal has been a huge success and will continue to grow with a collaborative effort of the forum participants. I encourage you to visit the forum's web portal on the address shown on the screen. PAIM is also at the forefront of monitoring shipping trends in the Arctic. PAIM operates the Arctic Ship Traffic Database, which includes detailed statistics on shipping activities in the Arctic, including the number of ships, ship emissions, use and consumption of fuel, and the use of Arctic shipping routes. PAIM will use the Arctic shipping data in studies, assessments, analysis, and in the development of recommendations that enhance Arctic marine safety and supports protection of Arctic people and the environment, including, of course, fishermen and the crew of fishing vessels. PAIM will also use the data for education and outreach, but we are also now providing data for research and analysis under the realm of the Arctic Council to research institutes, governmental agencies, Arctic Council observers, and others. PAIM's data can contribute to regulation enforcement in a number of ways, including the development of Phase 2 of the Polar Code. This analysis is done for all ships, all fishing vessels of all sizes who carry AIS equipment. So here is the Arctic, but this analysis is done for the IMO Arctic Polar Code area. Analysis of shipping can be looked at from a number of different ways. One of them is looking at the types of unique ships operating in the area. Unique ships means that each ship that enters the area is only counted once, even though it might enter the area multiple times. This chart shows the distribution of the 1,500 ships which entered the Polar Code area in 2018, and you will note that fishing vessels is a dominant category of ship types. It is also important to note that these vessels, including the fishing vessels, are registered all over the world. Around 25% of them are registered outside of the Arctic. They come from over 70 ship registries from everywhere from Panama, Liberia, the Bahamas to Germany. So a total of over 600 fishing vessels entered the area in 2018, which accounts for over 40% of all ships that entered the Polar Coast area in 2018. Of course, the number of unique ships only tells you one thing, but the distance the vessels actually sail also tells you a lot about vessel activity. The longer time you spend in the area and operators increase the sailing distance, it results in increased risk for the ships and their crew. This is particularly risky in the often harsh Arctic marine environment, with its fast weather changes, darkness, sea ice, in addition to vast distances to search and rescue operators. This chart compares the distance sailed by fishing vessels in 2018 to all other ship types, showing that fishing vessels account for almost half of the shipping activity in the Arctic Polar Coast area. PAIM's data also confirms how shipping is increasing in the Arctic, and here is just one example. This chart shows the total distance sailed by fishing vessels in the Polar Coast area from 2013 to 2018. When comparing the distance sailed, one can see that it increases every year, and in only 6 years, the distance increased by almost 60%. This increase coincides unsurprisingly with a decrease of Arctic sea ice. This graph from the National Snow and Ice Data Center shows the decrease of Arctic sea ice in the last few decades. And if the recent trend in increase of fishing vessels in the Arctic continues to rise, we will see more and more vessels sailing longer and longer distances in the Arctic in the next few years. As I said earlier, fishing vessels account for almost half of ship traffic in the Arctic, and therefore it might not come as a surprise that they are involved in half of the accidents as well. Another PAIM dataset, collected jointly with the EPPR working group of the Arctic Council, shows this trend. I should note that this is not for the Polar Coast area exclusively. This dataset was collected for a wider Arctic area, showing over 1,200 accidents of fishing vessels, ranging from groundings to major accidents and sinking in a 12-year period. With more vessel activity, an upward trend in many related factors will also rise. This includes more fuel consumption, more emissions from ships, more accidents, more seafarers in the area, and more marine litter. PAIM's 2019 desktop study on marine litter in the Arctic demonstrates how most of the marine litter in the Arctic region derives from fishing activities. This includes nets, floats, and other fisheries-related equipment. Under PAIM, the 8 Arctic states are currently developing a regional action plan which will play an important role in demonstrating Arctic states' stewardship towards reducing the negative impacts of marine litter, including microplastics, in the Arctic marine environment. By the way of reminder, PAIM works towards the harmonized and successful implementation of the Polar Code. One example is a project which is collecting information on how states interpret the Polar Code. Another is the Arctic Shipping Best Practice Information Forum, which I explained earlier. And I am particularly happy to see some members of our forum organizing committee here today, including Michael Kingston, who has been instrumental in the work of the forum, working as a special advisor to PAIM, and also Sverrir Konradsson from Iceland, who is the current chair of the forum. I would also like to thank the IMO for their support in the work of the forum. PAIM helps to identify risks and will continue to support enhanced international regulations with many of our projects. This important conference has been discussed within PAIM and reflected in PAIM's records of decisions on both of our annual meetings this year, including to encourage the Arctic states and the Arctic Observer states to ratify the Cape Town Agreement, which resulted in Finland deciding to do so. And it is indeed great to see many nations here in support. Thank you very much.